There are many traditions associated with Christmas: carol singing, large roast dinners, decorating the tree, and of course sending and receiving Christmas cards. Sending cards has always been a way of reconnecting with loved ones far from home, especially during the hardships of wartime. During the First World War, campaigning usually paused over winter to allow soldiers some respite, and it allowed the forces abroad to have as normal a festive period as possible under the circumstances. Special meals were prepared, gifts sent from home, and entertainment provided for those not in the front line. Sending Christmas cards home at this time was an important way for the troops to tell family and loved ones that they were in their thoughts, and some units designed and produced their own cards. Our collection includes several of these Christmas cards, and for Scottish troops in the early 20th century, New Year was as big an event as Christmas Day, so some of our cards celebrate the turn of the year. We'd like to show you the different designs and look at some of the stories behind them. Our first card was issued by an organisation known as the Scottish Churches Huts. They were one of the voluntary organisations that came to help the army in France. Established by the Church of Scotland, the Scottish Churches Huts had 25 centres manned by a total of 350 staff. They aimed to improve the lives of soldiers by offering them opportunities for prayer, rest or relaxation. Although this card has a distinctly Scottish flavour to it, with the Highland soldier looking towards home, it was actually sent by a soldier in an English regiment, a Corporal Joseph Turner, who at the time of writing this card was serving in the Royal Fusiliers. He later reached the rank of sergeant in the Royal Sussex Regiment before being discharged in 1920. It's not known who he was writing to, but he wrote, "Just a few lines to let you know I am in the best of health after my second wound. Hoping you and Bella and Mrs Andrews have an enjoyable Christmas. Yours sincerely, a true friend, Joe." This card for Christmas 1916 shows a cheerful soldier wrapped up warm by the fire on which he is making either some tea or a meal with a cigarette in his hand. The artwork brings to mind the popular comic strip character Oor Wullie, famous for sitting on his bucket. Our card is not the work of Oor Wullie's artist Dudley D. Watkins and is signed by a Sergeant Peter Brown of the Royal Engineers. Unfortunately, we have not been able to locate any information about him. On the back of the card is a short poem by a captain who was named Arthur Keedwell Harvey James. He was an actor and author from London who performed and wrote under the name of Arthur Scott Craven. As Craven, he authored a book of poems entitled Alarums and Excursions, and also a 4-act play called The Last of the English. His acting work also took in at least one early silent film, as he appeared in a British adaptation of Walter Scott's novel Ivanhoe in 1913. This was one of 2 productions of Ivanhoe that year, the other being made by a company from the United States. His acting and writing career would be cut short, however, as he was killed in action in April 1917 while serving with the Buffs. Our next card is for the new year of 1918. It doesn't have much of a look of Christmas about it, with a soldier in shorts and short sleeves, standing among cactus and palm trees, with a fairly Middle Eastern town or village in the far distance. The name Lowland Division at the top tells us why, as do the locations of Palestine, Egypt and Gallipoli. The 52nd Lowland Division comprised a number of Scottish battalions, including some of the Royal Scots Fusiliers, Highland Line Infantry, Cameronian Scottish Rifles and the Royal Scots, among others. It first saw action at Gallipoli, suffering heavy casualties among some of its brigades. It was then sent to Egypt and then into Palestine, participating in the Battle of Jerusalem. So although thoughts might have been turning to a traditional winter Christmas at home, for the jocks of the 52nd Lowland, Christmas of 1917 was very different indeed, passing through and fighting for the towns familiar to them from the Bible in the Sinai and the Holy Land. The artist of this card is most likely David George Presley. Prior to enlisting in 1914, he had been a glass painter. His father, also named David Presley, had been a newspaper editor, and so David Jr. probably had some artistic and publishing knowledge which would prove useful in creating the artwork for this card. Ironically, David George Presley may not have lived long enough to send one of the cards featuring his artwork. By the time the new year of 1918 had arrived, David had been dead for a little more than a month, dying on the 29th of November 1917 from wounds received in action. Today he lies in Kantara War Memorial Cemetery in Egypt. Our final Christmas card is another 52nd Lowland Division postcard, this time for the following New Year of 1919. The Lowland Division had moved to France in April 1918, and this is reflected in the locations named on the front cover. In addition to those mentioned in the previous card, France has now been added, and a suitable winter scene of a ruined village is depicted. The interior of the card also reflects this, as the image shows a jock standing over what appears to be defeated Turkish and German soldiers. The features of the defeated soldiers is perhaps a little more stereotypical and insulting than a modern audience might expect. All the illustrations in this card are the work of a Private Robert Birrell. He served initially in the 17th Battalion of the Highlanding Infantry, and he was a regular contributor of cartoons and illustrations to their battalion magazine, The Outpost. After spending some time convalescing in a hospital at home, he joined the 5th Battalion of the HLI in Palestine. From there he continued to send cartoons to The Outpost, and he also contributed this New Year's card to his new division. Although we know a lot about his war illustrations, we've been unable to find out much more about his life after the war ended. If anyone can tell us about his life in peacetime, please let us know in the comments below. We hope you found this look at some of the cards issued during the First World War interesting. We know there are other examples out there, and while we'd love to have shown you some more, we wanted to keep it to items we held in our collections. If you have similar cards sent during the First World War or in other conflicts, please let us know. We'd love to feature more cards like this in the future. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and please have a very happy Christmas.